All right, welcome back everyone to Jface Games. I've been doing a thing. So here's the deal. I'm still working on Scattered Isles, and I was playing around with the rewrite and trying to reword some things. And I went back to ICRPG, and I went back to Vagabond, because I think both games have some wonderful powers and verbiage. And I was just digging into those skills and digging into the resolution systems, and I kind of came up with a thing. And so I'm just throwing this out there just because I want to share it with other people, ideas that come to brain. And so what we have here is sort of a combination. I'll go to this publisher page over here. A combination of the resolution systems in like Crown and Skull, ICRPG, and Vagabond, I guess if you could think of that in those terms. So in essence, what you have is you're going to have skills, and those skills are going to live here, right? And then this is the number you have to beat. So it's a rollover system. This is the number you have to beat in order to be successful at that skill. And then these represent, and there would be a D4 here as well. I just didn't have that created at the moment. These would represent how much effort you actually apply, right? So just like in ICRPG, you're doing effort. And then there's a modifier over here. So let me walk you through what this might look like for a build, right? Like if you were actually going to kind of build this character out and give you an idea of how this like then rolls, right? So we have these 4 attributes. You have might, agility, presence, and intuition. You have 4 points. You put them however you want, just like ICRPG, but they just do it with 6, right? So maybe this person is going to, and so we'll go on the example. This person ends up having agility 2, presence 1, intuition 1, might 0. Perfect. Next, you choose a class, right? And this class, for instance, they're going to choose a fighter. I'm just making all this up. And they get the choice. You can either have brawl or aim, or you can have endure or notice. And what these do is you choose the ones, and so they pick 1 in aim and 1 in notice. They pick aim and notice. One of these, they get to make a masterful skill, and the other one, they make an excellent skill. So right off the bat, they're going to take one of these, and they're going to put one in this top masterful slot, and the other one in this top excellent slot. Okay? You with me? You with me? Then they choose an archetype. And I thought this was kind of cool, because let me go ahead and show you these skill lists first. I have 2 options. One is a very sort of bare bones skill list, where you can see this sort of like brawl, endure, forge, aim, move, tinker, command, charm, and channel. This is sort of like divinity, like religious magic. Notice, navigate, and weave. Weave is your arcane magic. Now, I also expanded these lists out, right? So they're a little bit more robust, right? So now here you have athletic, brawl, endure, forge, intimidate, survive, aim, move, tinker, ride, stealth, sleight of hand. So this is a little bit more expanded, right? And I'll just show the other ones. Notice, navigate, weave. I don't know if I like them. I don't know how they're going to go. Who cares? Now, the next thing you do is you choose your archetype. And this person's choosing a scoundrel, right? Now, at this point, what I thought was really neat is that these have a defined list of skills in a defined order. Like the scoundrel skill list, this is sort of, if you were using that first skill list, this is like ranking all the skills in order of like what the scoundrel, sort of like, and this is like that charming scoundrel, Han Solo-ish type scoundrel. And this might not, we could debate this, right? I just threw these things in order. And then same thing here. This is showing this list of if you had this expanded 24 skills list, what did it look like if for the scoundrel? So now what you have to do is you've already filled in slots 1 and slots 1 of masterful and slots 1 of excellent. So now what you have to do is you have to fill in the other skills in order for that archetype down the list, right? So if we look over here and we have the scoundrel's charm, aim. Well, charm goes in the other masterful. Aim you've already taken and put somewhere, so you move down to the next available spot, and that'll be move, navigate, etc. And then if we're using the other list, which we're going to stick with the other list for now, this shows that other list, right? Where you have this here, charm, aim, move, navigate, deceive, and you just fill it in. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Then over on the modifier, you put in the modifier based on what that attribute was that it was affiliated with. So now you have these modifiers over here. All right, what's the next step? The next step would be to roll for dice sets. So you have these effort die, right, that are listed here. And we don't have the D4, but you have these effort dice listed here for these different skills. But we don't want it to just be like, oh, you get to choose which one goes where, because that's kind of boring. So you've got to make some choices, right? So for Masterful and Expert, these are things you've actually trained in, so you have some say in sort of how good they are, right? So for your Masterful, you could choose one of these to be a D10 and the other one to be a D8. So I'm going to say that his aim is a D10, or I'm sorry, D10 or D6 or a D8 and D8, right? I'm going to say that he's not the most charming, even though he's good at succeeding, but his effort isn't massively high every time. So I'm going to say that this is a D8 and a D6 for my Masterful. And for my Expert, I'm going to go with the D8s across, right? We'll just say D8s across. And this is where it gets interesting, right? I wanted to make it a little more unique. So now for the good skills and the okay skills, you have to roll on this table and then just fill in as is down, right? So now, let's say I ended up with rolling a 6. That means that my Deceive is a D12 effort. My Stealth is a D10, but then my Tinker and my Persuade are D4s. Now, I don't have the D4 listed in here, but they would end up being D4s, right? And then I have to do the same thing with the okay skills, right? I've got these random numbers that get filled in. And what I like about this is that now it's like your raw talent, right? I might have Brawl, and all of a sudden I end up with a D12 in Brawl, so I can actually apply a ton of effort. I'm just not good at successfully landing it, but if it hits, if it lands, it's a big, massive thing. And what I think this is this hopefully draws players necessarily away. Like, this is a sure bet. You know, this is a sure bet skill up here. Like, I can aim, and it's a sure bet that I'm going to hit, and I'm going to get that D8, right? Or maybe that D10. But this weird Brawl down here now is a D12. And it's like, do I go for it? You know, those kind of things. I think there might be some interesting things like that could occur. And maybe the skills have to be tailored a little bit more. I thought about using approaches instead and just seeing what happens, but who knows? All right, then finally, you get to add some extra effort. So just like in ICRPG, I got 4 effort that I can now spread across. And this is why these over here are like +9, +11, because you're going to have some extra effort. So we're going to add another one here. Right? I'm going to say that my notice is a little bit better. Right? So that's 2. And then I'm going to jack up my stealth to +3. Why not? Okay? So let's just say that's it. Now, here's the other thing I think could be interesting, is that this is this layout, and then we have anything I'm unskilled in, I would then have like a D6 in. But I don't like this bottom part, so I tinkered around with that, and I ended up with this chart, right? So it's the same sort of chart, and let's see if I can, let's just go ahead and move this out of the way. Let's select all of this and all of this, if I can. Copy, and then we're going to paste it down here. Hopefully this works nicely. Right, something like that. It's not perfectly lined up, but that's okay. But then the idea being that I have might is +0 naturally. These other two are +2, +1s. And this agility is +2, right? So the reason I put this down here instead is because there might be some stuff that happens where it's like you don't have a skill necessarily for that. There's not a skill that exists for it, you know? And so instead, you're just kind of rolling your attribute, but the amount of effort you can get from just your attribute is a little low. And so I thought this might be this. These aren't skills. This is me just using my natural ability. And so maybe I could pump some effort into this. Maybe these are too low, but I think that's interesting. Now, let's get into the dice mechanic, right? So this is all determined stuff, but what happens when you actually roll dice? So let's just say that this character is aiming and shooting something. And so we've already determined that that means they have a D10 effort, and they need to get above an 11, right? Because an 11 is their base skill. So if we go over to this, they're going to pick up their D20, and they're going to pick up a D10, and then they're going to roll it. And as long as this is over 11, that means they're doing 5 effort, and the amount of modifier they had was 3, so they can just say that's 8 effort, right? But the reason that modifier doesn't say like effort modifier is because I could do this, right? And I'm not going to be able to beat that. But say this is within 3 of 11. Say this ends up being, like 8 or 9, right? Well, then I have this choice. I can either use that modifier to add to my, like here, perfect, right? So this normally, I would say if this were an 11, that's a success, and I take my effort and I add 3 to it. But if I can instead use my modifier to add to my d20 to make it success, but then I don't have a modifier to add to this, right? So this in essence is, it's a success, but I only do 3 effort, right? This is a success and I do 5 effort. This is a fail, right? And so I don't like failing with no resolution, so maybe it's you just do your modifier if you fail, like it's like a graze. So here is a success, and I do 7 effort because I get to add my modifier. So let's say a fail, you just do your, so this is a fail, maybe you just do 3 effort because you always do your modifier if there's nothing else there. Now, where that doesn't make sense is say you rolled a 1 on your effort die and you rolled a 9 here, and you apply your effort to make it a success and you do 1 effort. That doesn't make sense. So that doesn't work perfectly, but there's probably something there, something in terms of a graze. Now, I would use this probably also with my momentum system. And so we're not talking about that today because I just wanted to show this, but it would be adding that D6 momentum system, so you'd be able to add that and roll that whenever you wanted also. So anyways, let me know what you think. That's my random sort of, experiment or thinking about what would I do with a rollover system. How would I approach a rollover system? And then how would I also combine this concept of effort in these gradients and make it a fun, sort of interesting character build, right? I'd be curious what your thoughts are in terms of, this is kind of a messy chart, your thoughts are in terms of skills. What do people like for skills these days when they're looking at skills? I tried to look at DC 20, Draw, Steal, Crown and Skull, and then this one is more of like a, I don't know. I love the word weave for magic or arcana, and I like channel for divinity. So those would stay no matter what. I like the idea of attacking, all your different attacking types being in here. So anyways, give me your thoughts. That's it. Have a good one.